Wes Morris, welcome to the Refinery Podcast. Great to have you on the show today. How's it going?
Hey, Rick, it's going well. Thanks a lot for having me. It's an honor. Appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, the honor is mine. It's been a privilege to know you, and you and I met through a mastermind group that we're both involved in. We're both mentored by Paul Martinelli, and we've had the privilege of sharing the stage together. And for me, that's huge because we were both on the stage with some really big names, well-known people, people like Paul Martinelli and Les Brown, Ed Rush, Ed Milet. All of this was at our good friend Dan Nicholas's incredible location in Midland,
Yep.
Texas, La Luz Center, and events taking place there and at the Busch Gardens, Bush Convention Center. But I got to tell you, man, well-known, internationally known speakers. And I'll say it again, man, your speaking was absolutely far and away the best thing that happened there. It was incredible. You've got a great story. And not only do you have a great story, but you are excellent at telling it and telling it for good reasons. So yeah, just a privilege to know you. And speaking of your story, I'll let you kind of let people know what you want to share about kind of your background, your story. We're gonna talk about your book, Keep Pedaling, excellent book, and for a really good cause. And this is your story, and it's your story plus. But let's get into it. Start wherever you want. And what do people need to know about you?
Well, I let me first of all, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And I don't want to glimpse over the fact that of how we met through our mentor, Paul Martinelli.
Yes.
Signing up to get direct influence from that man has been by far the best decision that I've ever made, both for my personal and professional life. And you know as well as I do that he just expands your level of awareness of yourself and your potential like nobody else does. And I'm so grateful that we got connected through that avenue. Dan Nicholas has one of the greatest hearts that I've ever met. One of the most generous, real, authentic people that I've ever met. And I'm so glad that, we were able to serve on the same stage at his event Focus going from here to there. He's first class, man. That guy is incredible. In regards to me, here's something that a lot of people don't get to know about Wes Morris is that I was a bedwetter. So I started at an early age, and in the 80s, they didn't really know what to do with me. So I vividly remember having to
Interesting
sleep
place
on
to
this
start.
mat.
Yeah.
And whenever the mat would, yeah, whenever the mat would get wet, a siren would go off. Like it was the most annoying sound that you could ever imagine. And I always thought to myself, why are you waking me up after I wet the bed? That doesn't help me at all. And the reason why I tell you that is because at a very early age, I always felt different. I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt like there was something wrong with me. And as well as I do that our developmental years are very, very important. So the programming that
100%.
I was given as a result of wetting the bed was that, I had this dirty little secret. I couldn't sleep at the other kids' houses. I was different. And all of that kind of got programmed into my subconscious mind. I wasn't aware of it until a few years ago, but it was very, very important in my developmental years. Yep. Yeah.
So great, interesting place to start. And so, I mean, what you just said in that few couple of minutes, we could completely unpack, but I think that one key phrase that we all need to understand from that, and I want to go where you want to go with this, but we will never rise above the level of our self-image, as Maxwell Maltz said, right? And you're talking about the formative years of the image, the picture inside your mind that you have of yourself. So I'm curious. I know you were going somewhere with that. So that's where you started. How do we go from there to where you are now?
Yeah. So that's how life kind of started, a lot of divorce. And look, some parents, they go to work for 8 hours a day. They come home, they make dinner, they sit around the table and they talk about their day. That was not my household. My household was filled with, I had party parents. So, at 8 years old, my house got raided because my parents, my mom and my stepdad were selling cocaine, and it was devastating. It was violent. It was chaotic. Just imagine what a police raid would look like, and that's what it would look like. And I didn't have the ability to reason at 8 years old, so I just simply thought, I don't know, everybody's house. This happens to everybody. But then when I was 12, I came home from school and I found out my mom was running a prostitution ring out of her massage parlor. Now, at 12 years old, I was old enough to understand that this wasn't good, right? Small town in Pennsylvania, probably 5,000 people in population. There was no running away from this. This was a public display of humiliation on both my mother and what she didn't realize was myself. So I started hanging out with the bad kids.
Yeah.
We as human beings were looking for acceptance, and that's what I was searching for, was a basic human need of love and acceptance. And I found that with the kids that were, smoking cigarettes, doing bad things after school, and I thrived in that ecosystem. Long story short, that I headed down a bad path, and by the time I was 19 years old, I had 3 DUIs and 7 underage drinking charges, and I lost my license for 22 years as a result of some bad decisions that I made as a young kid. So, I got this great idea that I was going to move away from the hometown that I grew up in. And my great idea was to move to Philadelphia. When I moved to Philadelphia, I ended up becoming a homeless heroin addict in North Philadelphia as a result of getting hurt at work and getting prescribed prescription pain medication. Next thing you know, I was a full-blown drug addict. I had lost everything, and I was reduced to selling bottles of water in the middle of the street in one of the largest open-air drug markets in the world, North Philadelphia. It was horrific.
So, and you were talking about reduced to selling water bottles, and I know this is a silly thing for me to grab out of everything that you just said, but out of everything you just said, one thing I'm curious about is how did you get the water bottles?
I would just fill them up from the faucet. I would
Just grab a
find bottles of
bottle.
water. I would fill them up in the faucet. Yep. Put some ice on it. Next thing you know, it's ice cold water.
So in the middle of all of you were going through and putting yourself through, you were starting to show your entrepreneurial tendencies even in the middle of that.
I've been an entrepreneur since diapers. I've been selling this cute face my whole life. And my first entrepreneurial experience was maybe about 5 years old. Yeah, it was before kindergarten. We lived on a main road, so it was Main Street, right? So there were shops and merchants and store owners all around me. And I would draw these hideous pictures with a crayon for Halloween or Christmas or whatever the case may be, Valentine's Day. And I would go door to door in all these shops and I would try to sell them for a quarter. And what I realized is people weren't buying my hideous artwork. They were buying my ridiculously cute face and this little kid that, just so now whenever a kid is selling anything and, I buy. Yep.
Dude,
I've been
yeah.
entrepreneurial my whole life.
Well, and doing it in the middle of a lot of pain and a lot of turmoil, complete chaos, and back to kind of where you were in Philadelphia, selling filled up water bottles you put on ice. Where does your story go from there?
I think there's something to be said there as well. I have been around ex-cons who did decades in prison. I've been around what I call career drug addicts, meaning these people have used drugs consistently for well over a decade or two. I've been around these people extensively. And what I've come to find out is these are some of the most resourceful, creative people that I've ever met in my entire life. They are absolutely unbelievable. And what I've realized is that they have mastered the ability to create something out of nothing. Meaning every day,
Yes.
the life of an addict, they wake up, they have no dollars, they have $100 to $150 a day habit, and they have to find ways and means to survive. And what I mean is survive is that if they don't get this substance into their physical body, they're going to become violently ill. So the prefrontal cortex says, if I don't do this, I'm going to die. That's literally the message that it sends. And it's absolutely incredible to see these people innovate and create what it is that they need for that day. Sometimes it's illegal, most of the time it's illegal, but they are just so ambitious that I love to take people with that type of background and teach them how to apply those same principles into the business world. They're unstoppable, absolutely
Yes.
unstoppable.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about what you just said there, man, thank you for sharing that. That's great insight. And what's interesting about that is they don't understand, and we don't even understand really what it means to participate in the creative process. But what I'm saying is that the creative process is universal, it's unwavering, it's predictable. It works on laws that never change. They're enforced 100% of the time at all places and all times. And so if you think about a spectrum, and I'm doing the spectrum up and down, the laws work if you're way, way down below zero, and they work if you're way, way up above 100. Same laws, but they work. And pain can make us participate in the laws, whether we do it unconsciously or consciously, right?
Correct. Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Well, and so from all of that, where does life take you from Philadelphia and everything that was going on there? What happens next?
I had this pretty heavy realization at 26 years old, 27 years old, something around there. See, I had a sister who was addicted to opiates my entire teenage life and early 20. So I was well aware of the side effects and the devastation that opiate addiction brings. And I was that kid that said, this will never happen to me. I will never be my sister. Never, 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 until all my nevers came true. And one day, I managed to get back to my hometown, and my mother walked in on me about to stick a needle in my arm. And the pain in her eyes was more than I could handle. It was a deep, agonizing, fearful. Not only that, but see, look, it's one thing to have a problem. We all have problems, but it's a whole nother thing not to feel like you can't talk to anybody about it because of the shame and guilt that you feel as a result of participating in a behavior that you're not too proud of. And that's what happened to me. I just, one day I just dropped to my knees and I just started praying to this anything at the time because I had strayed away from that relationship with God, that I didn't know if my prayers would be answered, but I needed something. And, shortly after that, I started on the process of personal development and personal growth. My journey did not start out with paid coaches or seminars. It started with the 12 steps. And that is the process in which I began personal development. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how the process started. And it was a slow, monotonous process of writing. It took me 7 years. I have notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks that I have written in about myself and my past and why I did what I did and my beliefs and my fears and my assets and my resentments. And it was deep. It was hardcore. And it was worth every minute of feeling like I have carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yes. At what point in all of that did you realize that you were investing?
Maybe about year 6. I was not consciously aware of what I was doing. I just knew one thing, and that was I will not go back to the life that I was living. So whatever it takes.
Well, I know there's so much more, but I'll tell you right now, one thing I'd love to say is thank you. Thank you for staying in that. And I can only imagine how many times you probably wanted to give up and how many times you probably felt disappointed and discouraged. And I would not know you today if did not have the persistence and the willingness to stick with it and keep in that you said deep work. And I know that there's a lot
Yeah,
of people are
and
avoiding
thank you
that
for
kind of
noticing.
work, right?
Yeah. Here's something interesting that just came up when you said that. How should I say this? Okay, there have been fleeting thoughts about, look, I'm 11 years without any sort of mood or mind altering substance. 11 years, over a decade. There have been times of fleeting thoughts where maybe it sounds like a good idea. However, I can honestly tell you that once I made the decision that I was never going back to that life ever again, it was that. It was a decision. Was come either I'm going to die or I'm going to succeed, but there's no other option. So there have been times where I've questioned, do I belong in this room? Especially as you go on the entrepreneurial journey, where many times, sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes, multiple times a week, I felt like I wasn't enough. And I have constantly had to step outside my comfort zone, but never once did I ever think I'm going back to that. Once I made it up in my mind, we could be homeless on the street, but I'm not using.
I love that, and when you say that, the words non-negotiable comes to my mind. That's not something you're negotiating with of
That's
whether
right.
again, the fleeting thought comes, but you're not even entertaining the thought. You're not negotiating, well, this and maybe that, and I could trade this for that, and you're not having that negotiation. Is there anything else that you would say, "I don't even negotiate with that"?
I don't negotiate when it comes to the children in my life. Like when it comes to my niece who I'm raising, when it comes to my stepdaughter, when it comes to my family, it's a non-negotiation. They will be provided for. They will be taken care of.
So, obviously, that determination and that sort of steel inside of you, right? Steel, steel, right? That's set in titanium,
Yeah.
whatever. It's not moving, has served you well. Tell us
You know what else is
where does
non-negotiable?
that go, and what else do we need to know? Go ahead. No, you go.
Uh, this is just more stuff, more stuff coming up. Because I have a non-negotiable that I'm not going back to that life. I also have non-negotiables with my businesses, dealings with business. So I have a credence that I say every day, and it says that I will not engage in anything that does not benefit all involved. It's straight out of Think and Grow Rich, right? I will not embark in business dealings that do not benefit all involved. There's certain things that I can't do to make money. If it has anything to do with sex, gambling, alcohol, mood or mind altering stuff, I don't do it. So, not only am I not using substances in my own life, but I won't participate in anything that harms other people, which kind of narrows the road. Not too much, but, yeah. So that's non negotiable. Now, have I made bad decisions in business dealings? Yes, but I was not consciously aware of it. I cannot consciously participate in anything that does not benefit all involved. Means act with integrity.
Yes.
Yep. So that's interesting. That just came up.
Yeah, well, when you say that, one thing that it shows me that what it makes you 100% available for. Right? So that when you
Yeah.
the what is the where it says what does the scripture say? Let your yes be a yes, right? So, I like this idea that, like, when you say yes to something, because you know what you'll say no to, and you know that you know that you know what you'll say yes to, you're giving a full body yes. Every part of you is able to say yes to that.
Yeah. That's good.
So, where does
Yep.
where does your
Absolutely. Absolutely.
your years into this sort of development and into the digging in and into and where does that go?
Yeah. So, in the spirit of Ed Rush's book, God Talks, I get a divine download. I get a message from God. God speaks to me 15. And the message was, I want you to go take over your family business. Now, here's a funny piece to this whole story. My mom gets arrested in 1997 for running a prostitution ring. She stays in the same business in the same town in the same underneath the same branding, and she rights her wrongs. She divorces the lies of her past, and she marries the truth about who God says she is. And 3 years after that arrest, 3 years, she gets arrested in 1997, year 2000. I come home from school and my mom introduced me to Donovan McNabb, the head quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. So my mom goes on to be the head massage therapist of the Philadelphia Eagles from 2000 to 2012. because she never ran from her problems. However, 20 years after, in the year 2015, I realized that she was just a Google search away from people finding out what happened in 1997. And she had never changed the name. She never rebranded. So people will always remember you for your downfalls and rarely remember you for the things that you did right. It takes 20 years to build a good reputation. It takes 5 seconds to lose it. Once you lose it, you may never get it back again. Business. And that's exactly what I did. I rode a bicycle 8.5 miles every single day to go build my family business. No business experience whatsoever. I could barely read, and I didn't know anything about marketing, nothing. Selling bottles of water in the middle of the street to being a business owner. And I grew. I grew. I just kept showing up, and the business grew. That business grew 1,000% in 5.5 years. 5.5 years, 1,000%. Unbelievable growth. And at the end of that
So I'm curious.
season, my client. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, interrupted you there. Keep going. I'll come back to it.
At the end of that season, my clients included Olympic athletes, NFL athletes, Division I athletes, PGA. It was incredible. One day, November 22nd, 2022, I walked away. I gave the entire business back to my mom, free and clear. And I walked away.
When you did that, you were giving more than a business back. I've got a question about you're meeting all these famous people, you're working with all of them, and it's growing 1,000%. What are 3 things that you did that contributed to that growth?
That's a phenomenal question. Number one, I invested in myself. The success of an organization is going to be directly predicated on the psychology of the leader. So as I grew, as my psychology grew, so did the business. Second thing that I did was I adopted a mantra, and that is do more for other people than anybody else. So we just focused on how we could add more value as a business, as therapists than anybody else. And the third thing that I did was I immersed myself. I was there every single day, 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 years. I immersed myself.
Excellent. And it's interesting the order in which you said those.
You know,
It's interesting.
if I could give you a fourth one,
Yes.
the fourth one that I did, Rick, was my staff knew that I invested in them. Not only was I investing in myself, but I was showing them personal finances. I was getting them to believe in themselves. I was helping them grow.
Nice, nice. And let me ask this, do any or all of those people still work for your mom?
No, we created 6 entrepreneurs. So 6 of those people went on to start their own businesses, which we were I was so happy about. And they are still
What
in
a great
business today.
success. That's incredible. That's incredible. So when you sold that business back, gave it back to your mom, when you get you.
I didn't know. I I let go of that business to pursue my God-given calling as a professional speaker.
So talk about that journey.
Yeah, I was sitting in that chair right there. It was 3 months after I had walked away from the business, and during a morning meditation, I get a message from God, and he says, excuse me, I get a message from God, and it says, I want you to go down to where you're from, Spartansburg, South Carolina, and I want you to go speak to 200 kids that don't have dads at Fire Pit Ranch. But I don't want you to take a plane. I want you to ride your bicycle. And I came out of that meditation with tears in my eyes. So I rode my bicycle 479 miles to South Carolina to go speak to 200 kids. We raised money for that organization, and I came home, and day 3 of processing, I get a divine download from God, and that divine download says that bicycle that you rode is a metaphor for a successful, meaningful, and purposeful life. And that's what the book's about. It's about breaking down the bicycle and using it as a metaphor to create whatever it is that we desire in our life.
You know, what's interesting is God could always speak with authority on that, but after 500 miles and that trip and following that prompting from him, you could speak with authority on that. And that's what this book does, right? And it shares that with people. By the way, I just want to say kind of parenthetically, you're talking about Fire Pit Ranch, which was started by God, but through our mutual friend Jacob Buckley, who he and his dad Seth have both been on the podcast here and shared about the family legacy, Fire Pit Ranch, their work with Hurricane Helene. And again, this is what proximity with the right people brings you to proximity with other incredible people. So that's my end of my parentheses, but I know we're both thankful to know them. I'm thankful for again your obedience
Yes.
and following through and sticking with that and all that that must have meant uh, on all of those miles. And one thing I like is that you didn't just, hey, here's a story. It's a real nice story. Look at me, I pedaled a bike. This is a story going through you. And all throughout this book are ways for people to engage in the metaphor that you're talking about. So just share what you want to share in terms of, what people can expect and just a few things about those metaphors.
3 o'clock in the morning, I get woken up and God just gives me a divine download. And it was like, it just hit me. It was so powerful. And it starts with the pedal, with the handlebars. So the handlebars are our decisions. Our decisions create our destination in life. 1 degree to the left or to the right of my handlebars, I'm ending up in a completely different destination. And you are one decision away from a completely different life. So you got to make good decisions. The next is the pedals of the bicycle. Those are our dreams, our goals, our desires. The bigger the dream, the bigger the goal, the more power I put to my pedals and the further I go in life. Next is the chain. Those are our daily actions. They have to be in alignment with that front sprocket, with our dreams. It's like me saying I want to be somewhere in life, but my daily actions are not in alignment with where I want to go in life. Not only that, but everybody knows that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So it's actually our weakest daily habits that keep us from our dreams, not our strongest ones. The next is the wheel. That's our support system. At any given time, as the wheel of life turns, all my weight was on one spoke. And in life, you're going to have to rely on a handful of people. So make sure you have a good, strong support system around you. The next is the tires. Front one's filled with inspiration, back one's filled with motivation. Now, on that 500-mile ride, I had to check and fill my tires daily. Because if you ever try to ride a bike on flat tires, Rick, boy, it makes it real hard to do. And if you ever try to go through life uninspired and unmotivated, boy, it makes it real hard to do. So you have to find something that inspires and motivates you on a daily basis. There's about 5 more, but you got to read the book to find out what they are.
Yes, you have to and should. And anyone watching the podcast, just scroll down. The link's right there. We've got the link right to it. And now
Thank you.
this book, keep pedaling. Homeless addict to working with Olympians, the 12 tools to create your dream life. So the value is inside of the book and the value is in what people do with this. Is there more to this book as far as the proceeds of the book or anything that's going on with the book? Is there more to it?
There is a little girl. Her name is Naya. She is a little girl that will never meet her father. She was raised by her grandmother for the first 13 years of her life. This little girl, in spite of the adversity that she felt, she graduated high school with a 5.1 GPA, even though she had to switch high schools her freshman year to go live with her uncle because of some adverse situations. That little girl graduated with a 5.1 GPA and is in her freshman year at Howard University studying neuroscience. One of the most gifted, loving, amazing young girls that I've ever met. And 50% of all the proceeds of that book go into her account so that she can be provided for as well as pay for her schooling. That girl's name is Naya Morris.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Love that. Absolutely love that. So talk to me about your inspiration for 2026. What's on your radar? What's already on the calendar? And what else is out there for you in 2026?
2026 is going to be the year that Wham inspires Westley Morris to keep pedaling message really breaks out in the mainstream. The world needs to hear this message, and it's time. It's my time. It's the message time. It's God's time. So just taking what you heard in Texas and taking that to a national and then global scale. That's what I'm most inspired about.
Outstanding. Well, it needs to be heard. I've known you for probably what, 4 or 5 years, maybe getting a little bit more than that now.
Yeah.
And that was my first opportunity to really see you on stage and hear the message. It's real. It was raw. It was incredible. I don't say it lightly. I have incredible respect for other people that were on the stage, Andy Hall, Diane Burton, Jay, and the people that we've already named, and they're amazing, amazing people. And I'm just saying that they delivered some great stuff.
Yes, they
There
did.
was no competition. I'm just saying that, man, there's no reason in the world why what you just said will not and should not be the case. And you're right. And I could endorse that with every fiber of my being. The world needs that message, and you're the one to give it to them.
Yeah.
And look, I'll share the stage with you again happily anytime. And and I'll be very happy to do any kind of event and things with you. So, I think it's incredible. And I think it's incredible. It's interesting because I understand that you've paid a lot of dues, you've invested a lot, you've stayed in it. And I understand that all of that is incredibly important, and it still does not take away challenges in life, right? In this world, we will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world, is what Christ said, right? And
Mhm.
so, what I know though is as far as a spoke, and the wheel, you're a person that anyone could count on as far as being a part of their circle. So, I am very thankful for you being on this podcast, and I'm grateful to know you and look forward to getting to know you better. So, any other just kind of parting thoughts that you would like to share with people as we wrap up here?
I just want to say that you did a phenomenal job as well. I remember your segment. You were part of the panel and you did AI. And I could tell that you really took your time. I could tell that you knew your stuff. You were rehearsed and you took it serious. And I love people like that. I love people that, that rehearse because that's what it takes. So well done. Well done. I just want to I just want to say congratulations on all your success. I've been watching you from afar with the Refinery Studio. I've been watching you create content. Oh, I know how much you give. I know how much you give. You do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that not everybody sees. And I know what you've done for young people. I know what you did with survival skills and taking young people out into the woods and just what an amazing lesson that is. And I just want to let you know that I see you. I see you and I appreciate you and you inspire me. So thank you.
Yes, and the kind words. Thank you very much. And all for the good and God's glory, and all to help people profit in their life and be connected with the purpose they were created for. That's what's in it for me. And so thank you for that. Well, I look forward to,
You're
I
welcome.
think
You're welcome.
anyone who watches this, keep an eye out. There'll be events, things we'll do together, things we'll do separately, but anything that would be something that people would be very, very glad that they were involved with. And like I said, we're going to make sure here people have every way that's right to get connected with you, to know more about you. I highly encourage anyone looking for a speaker, if you want an event and you want every single person that comes to that event to walk away knowing that the flag was planted farther down the field, that the needle was moved, that something happened there, and that the event had the air in the tires. They need to connect with you. They need to bring you in, and it'll be well worth whatever that takes. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Keep pedaling.
Keep pedaling.